What if I told you that the CIA, yes, that CIA, wrote a report on how to literally transcend time and space just using the power of your own mind? Well, you don't have to imagine it, because they actually did. So let's dive into one of the absolute strangest documents ever to be declassified, an official government analysis of reality, consciousness, and a very specific technique they called the gateway process.
And there it is, dated June 9th, 1983. This isn't some internet conspiracy theory or a sci-fi script. This is a real report, requested by the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command. Their goal? To get a serious official assessment of a training program called the Gateway Experience, and figure out if it actually had any practical military or intelligence applications.
The report doesn't just flirt with these enormous questions, it tackles them head-on. It actually tries to build a scientific model to explain things like out-of-body experiences, seeing things from a distance, what they call remote viewing, and even interacting with the past and the future. What's so wild is just how seriously it takes all of this. To even attempt to answer that question, the author of the report, a lieutenant colonel named Wayne M. McDonald, had to go way, way down the rabbit hole. He dove into theoretical physics, metaphysics, you name it. His mission, essentially, was to create a whole model of reality where these things that sound impossible could, at least in theory, actually happen. Okay, so before we can even get to the gateway technique itself, we have to grapple with the report's incredibly radical view of the universe. The entire foundation of this document rests on one premise: the world that we see, touch, and feel, it's not the whole story. Instead, the report argues reality is a massively complex hologram. So, at the very heart of everything, according to this report, is something it calls the absolute. Just try to imagine a boundless, static ocean of pure energy and consciousness. It exists completely outside of our concepts of time and space. Everything we know, our entire universe, is just a ripple on that ocean, a temporary projection that comes out of this ultimate source. And here's how they actually visualize this concept. They call it a cosmic egg. In this model, the universe is this looping, self-contained energy pattern called a torus. Now think about what that really means. Every single moment, your childhood, right now, and the distant future, it all exists at the same time within this universal hologram. Our experience of time as a straight line is, according to this, just an illusion. It's just one limited way our consciousness perceives a much, much grander reality. So, okay, if the universe is a hologram, then what does that make us? Well, this diagram from the report illustrates its answer. It suggests that our consciousness isn't actually produced by our brain. Instead, the brain is more like a very sophisticated antenna. Our consciousness is actually an energy field of its own, and it can tune into and decode different frequencies from that bigger universal hologram. And that, right there, brings us to the technique itself. I mean, if our consciousness is a receiver in a holographic universe, the next logical question is, how do you change the channel? How do you adjust your frequency? Well, that is the entire purpose of the gateway technique, to provide a step-by-step method for tapping directly into that universal field. The method itself is broken down into a very structured process. It all starts with using a specific audio technology called hemisync, which is designed to get the left and right hemispheres of your brain to work together in perfect harmony. This synchronization is what allows a person to access different states of consciousness, which the program calls focus levels, with the ultimate goal being to reach a state of high coherence with the universe itself. So here's the core science behind it. The report explains that hemisync uses something called binaural beats. That means playing slightly different audio frequencies in each ear. The brain, being the amazing thing it is, naturally creates a third internal frequency to make up the difference between them. And this is what's known as the frequency following response. It's the key that lets the technique literally guide your mind into very specific brainwave states, from super deep relaxation to incredibly heightened awareness. All right, so what's the ultimate goal here? What happens when you achieve this highly coherent state of consciousness? This is where the report really pivots from the theoretical into claims of extraordinary, almost unbelievable abilities. The report uses this exact diagram and this very specific phrase, clicking out. The idea is that our consciousness is normally sort of stuck, oscillating within the limits of our physical reality. But by reaching a very specific, very high frequency, it can momentarily transcend those boundaries. It can literally click out, allowing it to perceive information and even entire dimensions that exist beyond our normal concepts of time and space. So, once someone has clicked out, what can they supposedly do? The report details some pretty advanced applications. Problem solving is about tapping into the universal consciousness for information you couldn't otherwise know. Patterning is the idea of focusing your intent so powerfully that you can actually influence or manifest events in reality. And then there's the most incredible stuff, accessing specific focus levels to vividly experience the past or even get glimpses of the future. Now, it is so easy to look at all this and just dismiss it as a bizarre fringe relic from the Cold War. But the truly fascinating thing is how these core ideas just keep popping up over and over in modern theories and philosophies about consciousness. Just look at the parallels here. The Gateway Report's universal energy field sounds an awful lot like some modern theories in philosophy that suggest consciousness is a fundamental, non-physical field. The idea of the body as an antenna perfectly mirrors the modern concept of the brain being an interface with reality. And the goal of achieving high brain coherence, that's exactly what so many modern mindfulness and meditative practices are trying to achieve, just with different words, like deep harmony or a flow state. So, in the end, we're left with this really fascinating question. Was the Gateway Report just a strange, speculative tangent from a government agency that was exploring every fringe possibility it could? Or was it an early, systematic attempt to map out the very nature of consciousness and unlock a potential that we are still only just beginning to understand? The document lays out its own strange logic, but the final conclusion? Well, that's up to you.